the wrestling business, like economically, in terms of where the money comes from, where the revenue comes from, is turned upside down in the last 30 years or so. When I was a kid growing up, it was all about the house shows, and I used to watch Saturday morning wrestling, and there would be some local promos to promote the next house show in Buffalo or Niagara Falls. And the WF Superstars that was on my local Fox affiliate. I don't know, WF might have been paying even to have that slot, as
Right.
opposed to it's very much the other way around now. And there was pay per view, and there was very little money coming in for just producing your weekly TV show. And over the years, as the cable bundle has become distressed, and as TV networks are eager to hang on to the viewership that they have and to hang on to the top programs that they have so they can hang on to the subscribers of on cable and satellite that they have, the most viewed TV shows, especially those maybe top 5 or top 10 TV shows on a given night, those have become way more valuable than they were in the past. Because as cord cutting happens, as younger people never sign up for cable, the most popular TV shows have become super valuable. And some of the most popular TV shows on any given night, whether it's Monday, it's Raw. On Wednesday, it's often Dynamite in the top 1 or 2 or 5, certainly in the top 5 lately. SmackDown's usually number 1 across all of TV. I would say maybe about half the time they're number 1 on Friday. So those are really valuable TV shows, and as that's become the case, those shows are able to demand, in WWE's case, hundreds of millions of dollars a year just in the U.S. So it's way more money than they would be making if they were just relying on house shows. And at the same time, production values have become really expensive. I think it costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 to put on a pretty good looking TV
Mm-hmm.
taping. Maybe it's a big show. It might cost $1 million to produce that event. So it's becoming really expensive to run the events, to make them look nice for TV, and it's becoming really lucrative if you have a really popular wrestling show. So it's all guaranteed money, and it's so in WWE's case, it's $265 million a year for Raw on an average annual basis, $205 million a year for SmackDown. WWE decided it was better to sell their network, sell their essentially their pay per view and their library rights to NBC Universal for Peacock, as there's more and more investment in streaming. And they're making more money. They're making reportedly $200 million a year to have all that content on Peacock. That's more than they would have make. That's more than they were making for the U.S. portion of their W Network revenue, which was, I would say, somewhere around, I don't know, just over $100 million a year. I want to say for the U.S. portion. So they're definitely making more, and it's lower risk because it's guaranteed. So yeah, that's it's really turned everything on its head. And there's still house shows for WWE. There's still obviously a live event. There's still ticket sales, and that's good revenue. You know,
Mm-hmm.
AEW drew 10, well over, I think it's 13,000 people to the United Center for Forbidden Door,
Yeah.
and over $1 million gate. So that's important too, but that is the smaller portion of the revenue compared to media. It's really transformed from a live events business to a media business. And we think of media as just think of it as selling some form of video, whether that's live video or whether that's something in a video library.
So how because in the mix of that too is Dynamite, which so in our first, and you know all this, but just for people that don't, our first 3 months
Hmm.
in existence, Dynamite was on TNT as a ad rev share program,
Right.
and we'll discuss that in a second. But then after those 3 months, because the demos were so good, they re-signed us. I believe it was 160 million over 4 years, something along those, maybe 175 million. Something.
Tony Khan has tweeted 175 over 4 years, so that would come out to about $44 million a year. So
Now, obviously, and we'll get into this, but just as one last little note to keep in mind, that's a huge amount of money. But out of that 44 million, you're saying it costs about 500,000 a week to do the actual television, which 500,000 times 52 is
yeah,
25 million. So half of that right off the bat
yeah.
is, or over half is just for television production alone.
Right. And so that's just in the U.S. That $44 million. That's just from what is now Warner Brothers Discovery, and that, I believe that escalates over time a little bit. So it's a 4-year deal. So you start off with 44 would be the average
Right.
across those 4 years, and it would get a little bit higher each year. But AEW also has international partners that probably pay them something,
Of course.
including in India. And WWE has a deal in India. That's their second biggest TV market. So I would guess maybe UK. I'm not sure. But AEW has ITV in the UK, and they have Eurosport, I believe, in India.
Eurosport, and then obviously TSN in Canada.
Right.
But the ITV deal in the UK is, I think, one of the biggest channels you can be on, and it's actually bigger than WWE's deal in the UK.
Yeah, I see the TV ratings sometimes for the UK, and Dynamite seems to be doing better than either Raw or SmackDown, which I'm not quite sure how to read that. But I had people telling me that, well, given the platforms that they're on, that would make sense. But yeah, so $44 million a year, and then there's international TV revenue
Sure,
as
gotcha.
well, and then there's ticket revenue that helps as well. Yeah, but it's really expensive to put on a wrestling show, but there's more ways to make money from it than there were in previous decades.